Hi, welcome back to the Haven Light Podcast. I'm here with Ganel-Lyn Condie, who is a mental health educator and author. I'm really happy that people like you are starting to, bridge that gap between faith and mental health.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about in regards to that is when someone is struggling, right, and faith doesn't seem to be enough, what is your immediate counsel to them?
Well, I feel like just a little backstory if people don't know my backstory.
Yeah.
And that my 40-year-old sister died 12 years ago by suicide. Within 9 months, I was working on publishing what I think is the first book Deseret book carried that had a suicide story connected for a faith audience.
Yeah.
That book turned into a great missionary tool because then I spoke in mega churches in the South and Baptist churches and community churches about faith and this intersection of mental health, because every faith community is also dealing with their own mental health paradox.
Yeah.
And so Meg has really become my sister Meg really has become my missionary companion and was my biggest fan. I'm the big sister, and she was my biggest supporter, and she knew I had been working on the book. It didn't have her story in it yet because it hadn't happened, but she watched me trying to get it published and trying to get it out there in the world. And so I often tell that story is the Lord was really putting all the pieces in place. Then Meg died. Then I had to go back and re-edit what I had submitted once it was accepted to include a story that hadn't happened yet. And from that first book, I didn't think there would be 19 more. I didn't think there would be 3 CDs. I didn't think there would be podcasts and TV and radio and speaking. And I'm really grateful for that ministry. I feel like it is. And so for me, mental health and faith, to answer your question, there's 2 sides of that. There's the side of those of us that struggle with mental health and those of us that have lost someone to mental health and those that are trying to support. And that's kind of everyone on the planet. So first and foremost, that's all of us. The Psalms of Nephi is after Lehi's died, and he's like this great new prophet, but his brothers have been abusive, right? And he kind of wishes he could die, right? The one with the issue of blood had a blood issue, but we know after 13 years of trying everything, which to me is kind of the pinnacle example of God's understanding of mental health. And I found that a few days after Meg died. I went to the scriptures. I was planning her funeral. I was writing her obituary. It was horrible. It was horrible. I was having nightmares. I was not sleeping and trying to make arrangements. And I thought, where did God know that 2014 and on was going to be difficult mental health-wise for his children? And I came to the woman with the issue of blood and felt like that story, even though we're talking about a blood issue, shows what it's like for those in your audience that deal with it on a chronic basis. Someone in your audience may be listening to this podcast and they're having a periodic episode of depression. Maybe they just went through a loss, like Nephi, where his father dies, right? But for my sister, it was chronic. It was long-term. She was tired. And so when I read that story with new eyes, I could see where this one with the issue of blood was isolated. Culturally, if you have an issue of blood, in her culture, you weren't preparing food or being around people. So for her to go to the street that day and reach for the Savior's robe is excruciatingly faithful.
That's a big jump.
It's a big jump.
Right?
And there's no Yelp reviews saying, like, this guy, he really is the Savior. He's really doing what he's saying he's going to do. There's no blogs to read or YouTube channel to check to see, is Jesus of Nazareth who you really think he is? Did he really raise someone from the dead? Did he really, right? This is early in his ministry. And she goes to the street and she crowds around people. And I think when individuals that especially are part of a faith community or religious background have mental health, it intersects where all of a sudden you're like, am I even hearing God? Because if it's depression or chronic anxiety or OCD or addiction, that can be a really hard filter for the voice of God and the Spirit of God to get through.
Because you're not sure what you're exactly hearing right now.
And just sitting in a pulpit, like standing at the pulpit, listening to someone testify of like, this is how I hear God, and I know God is real, and I know this, and I know that, and you're sitting in the pew going, I don't think God has answered any prayers, and I'm crawling out of my skin, and it just feels like fog.
Yeah.
So in my mind, the one with the issue of blood is crawling through the crowd, but it feels similar to someone sitting in a pew at church and hearing someone testify in fast and testimony meeting about them knowing and witnessing, and the miracle happened, and they fasted and prayed. And my sister had gone to lots of therapists and lots of tools. And so, I mean, in a very complex way, we can talk about suicide, that it's one decision someone makes that changes your other choices.
Yeah.
In our faith, we believe Meg continues to progress. But this one with the issue of blood, her body was failing her, right? It was preventing her from functioning normally in society and her community. And it says in the scriptures, everything she tried, it got worse. Well, I can relate. I have Meg and other family members that everything they've tried, it doesn't seem to be the thing. So to those that are listening, where that might be your issue, and you're in the middle of your 13 years, but it's more like 30.
Yeah.
And you're thinking the only solution is death because you want the pain to stop and you're tired, which is really what it's about, right? Yeah. It's not laziness. It's not enough faith.
Yeah.
It's exhaustion of the soul. I would just say to you, as the late Elder Holland said, that healing comes in this life or the next, but it comes. And that's what I know about the characteristic of God.
Yeah.
And so if you're tired, please look at the woman with the issue of blood and see that she tried one more thing. Where she had no evidence that it was going to work. She had opposite evidence.
Well, I think about that story. I think it's Naaman in the Old Testament who was affected with leprosy. And he really wanted the prophet to tell him to do some huge grand thing. And he said, no, wash in the River Jordan 7 times.
Yeah.
That's it. And he was upset with that. And I think about that story. And then I think about this, what you point out with the woman with issue of blood. She was just so, she was going to be satisfied with the bare minimum, just the hem of his garment.
And some translations say the thread of the hem.
Yeah. And that's all that I want.
Yeah.
And she must have gotten to a point where it was just so difficult that even little things, just a little thing.
Listen, I do these podcasts, I write books, I speak, because books live long and podcasts live in people's ears, like months and years later. You know, I hear from people now that hear a podcast from, I don't even remember when I did that interview. And so I want it to be clear to anyone listening or watching this that I am not trying to oversimplify.
Yeah.
I've lived it. I have loved ones that are still struggling on a chronic, intense level. I have dealt with my own mental health stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for a big toolbox. I think art and music and scriptures and uplifting books and getting a weekly massage, which I do for my lupus and my mental health, exercise, going to church, worshiping in the temple in the way that it feels comfortable to you. All of these things are part of that toolbox. And I think what the story of the woman with the issue of blood is so crucially saying to us is hope is a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to the end of the alphabet. It's trying one more thing. And if you're listening to this and you're screaming at us because you're like, I've tried everything, it's not working, I hear you. But this body that you've been given, that you think if you could be removed from it, the pain's going to stop. God really honors agency. He honored the agency of my sister, but he understood why she got tired.
Yeah.
And I have a body that hurts every single day, physically. Every single day I deal with symptoms of lupus. But every single day I know that my lupus is my teacher. Your mental health is your teacher. It's your stewardship, which is another book that I wrote called The Stewardship Principle. And I really believe that we're going to build Zion because friends like you and me have different stewardships that are painful. The one with the issue of blood was able to come to know, what does the Savior say? Woman, thy faith hath made thee whole. What faith? Faith that came from 13 years of everything she tried, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Faith didn't come from fruit snacks.
Or from that one little touch.
Or fasting that one time and then telling us in sacrament meeting that it worked. Or paying your tithing that one time. It was a lot of trying and it not working. That's literally where her faith in that laboratory of living grew. And maybe you're sitting there thinking, I don't really want that kind of faith. I get you. You know, I think that's where we can help one another ease some of the pain. I think when we talked earlier, the analogy of the bridge.
Yeah.
And I'm working on another project that is for women's conference, and I found a quote about the bridge, and I thought of you, and I thought sometimes our bridges feel like they can't hold the heavy that we're asked to carry over. But bridges are such a beautiful example of, sometimes someone in your neighborhood is over here and you're over here doing really good in this area and they're struggling in that area and vice versa. That's how Zion's going to be built. But when I started talking about faith and mental health, people weren't talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the only one talking about it, but back then there weren't a lot. Now there's more, right? Yeah. And so I feel like I was within a LDS community, one of the earlier voices saying suicide is not like, you can't talk about it and make it not sound horrible. Yeah. It's horrible.
It is.
And it's a totally different grief. I've lost 2 sisters. I have sisters buried by each other. I had a sister die when I was 10 and she was almost 2. It's a very different kind of grief than suicide grief. Yeah. Sometimes it comes in the wake of a teenager you think is happy, and teenagers make choices within 15 minutes. Sometimes, like we talked previously, it's middle-aged men that look like they're doing the calling, going to work, hunting every day, for the food to feed their family, while inside they're dying. Yeah. That's our number one group, dying by suicide.
Of course. Well, I mean, I can relate to that because of my experiences with mental health. Because I soft lost this on the other previously, but I am bipolar, and it took me a long time to really come to grips with the fact that there was even something that I needed to address. And because to me, it wasn't something that it was just. Okay, you just need to go lift more weights, or you need to put on the pads. You need to hit somebody harder.
Eat more protein.
And that's
always eat
your
more
cure,
protein. Yeah.
Right. But no matter how many weights I lifted, no matter how much protein I ate, there's just
or fasting or
prayer or anything like that. There was. I could consistently tell that I would experience these high highs, these low lows, and nothing was ever really affecting or helping. But when I finally came to grips with the fact that maybe I do need help, even just that, they say faith is like a mustard seed. Well, even just admitting I might need help, sometimes that's enough to just leak in there and just start working its magic into you.
And I want to say to the men out there that might be listening, thank you for being vulnerable. Yeah. Because when a man in a family says, I need help, when a father in a family says, I'm going to therapy, when a man says in his work community, I'm getting some support, I have a coach, I have a therapist, I've started meds, I go to the gym, all for my mental health, it ripples out into those communities. It strengthens families. It's... in a literal way, my husband has a really demanding job, and I've watched as he has done more self-care. It's trickled out to his son, who watches him, who now does self-care when he needs it, right? And so sometimes men think, well, I'm in charge of caring for my family. Women too. And yet when we as parents or spouses model that kind of behavior and talk about therapy as education for our hearts and our relationships, and I think we're better than if you and I were having this conversation 10 years ago, it would be very different.
Yeah, exactly. It would be.
We have improved. Yeah. We still are getting too many suicides, right? There's still people dying from what I call hearts failing them. Yeah. Okay? Where people get tired. And there's not one magic solution. There's not one magic book. I mean, I regularly, weekly, daily, I get messages from someone that says, my neighbor just lost. What should I do? What book should I give them? As if there's this magic thing. There's not. It's a very complex issue, but we have improved. We have improved in the shame about saying I need help. So for you to say, I finally said I needed help, I just want to reiterate, when men do that, they're providing for their families.
Yeah. That's a really good way to look at it, and it makes me more motivated to get help. If I look at it as a way of, I'm actually providing for my family when I do that, and it's like, okay, now I'm motivated to do it. Right? Because I'm supposed to contribute towards the household. I'm not supposed to take any resources away from it. I know. I'm supposed to provide. I'm not supposed to take.
But it's true. You're speaking the words of what men really feel that they don't. This is the power of a podcast. Yeah. Right? Because you're at the track or at the gym and you got earbuds in and they're hearing you and I talk about this and they're like, wait, what? Yeah. Wait, I'm a fireman. I'm a policeman. Yeah. I'm a provider. I'm an accountant. what do you mean I'm providing when I ask for help? Neil A. Maxwell says that we all need outside auditors.
Yeah.
So that toolbox may be good art. That may be a good therapist. That may be medication. That may be more protein. It may be all of those things,
Yeah.
right? My lupus, I can't just do one thing.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily symptom-free, but there's a lot I do all the time that motivates me. I was diagnosed before I became a mama, and I talk about it in this book.
Yeah.
I talk about it in other books too, but in this book specifically, I talk about having our son finally after 7 years.
Yeah.
And what the gift was is I had a diagnosis before I became a mom. So I knew even through unemployment, taking care of my health wasn't optional. It wasn't like spa day self-care. It was essential if I wanted to stay alive to raise my babies.
Yeah. There was daily things that you had to do.
I had to do, and I
Yeah.
had to learn to say no to things so I could say yes to other things. If you're dealing and stewarding mental health stuff, there's going to be things you learn that you have to say absolutely no to so you can say yes to your mental health.
Yeah.
And so when I hear from people that say it's too hard to go to church right now, I'm like, great.
Yeah.
God's like not freaking out about that. And if for this season for you, it's not helping your mental health, great. Or if there's a way you can do it differently so that you can attend and partake of the sacrament and worship in the temple, but it works with your mental health for now. God gets that. And so I love giving permission and words for feelings that sometimes, especially with men, therapy looks like just talk therapy.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before,
Well,
that
I think,
it's not.
Yeah, it's
not. There's so many things there now.
That was the frustrating thing about therapy at first for me, because I'm very much, and I think a lot of men are like this, is I'm very much,
What's the solution?
Give me the solution. Give me the steps, right?
Yeah.
Give me the thing. Give me the equation.
Yep.
And then I'll do the equation.
Yep.
I don't have to pay you any more money
To talk about my
to
feelings.
talk about my feelings at all. But it doesn't work that way.
No.
It doesn't work that
No.
way. You have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to be vulnerable, like the mustard seed's not going to get in there.
Yep.
And so that was the hardest thing for me to accept. There wasn't just some new daily routine or new morning routine I could implement. There was gonna be a while where I had to sit in my feelings, talk it out, and then only then, once I really got down into the root of the emotions, could we navigate out.
Yeah. And I think wherever anyone is on their journey with faith, with mental health, with physical health, with financial health, with social health, with connection and relationships, whatever that is. I love, we talked about this before too, the woman with the issue of blood to me is such a good example of mental health and physical health struggles. But the story of Peter walking on water to me is such a beautiful example of what it looks like to be mortal.
Yeah.
And to learn how ridiculous we're all going to look at times. And yet, when we tell the story of Peter walking on water, we always jump right to him sinking.
Failing. But yet, we're forgetting that this guy walked on water for a second.
And
Didn't see any of the other apostles doing that.
And those guys had hung out just as much with the Savior.
Exactly.
They could have witnessed to all of his other miracles. We don't know exactly what they had already maybe seen or not seen. But to me, the essence of Peter is that he's saying to us, if you want an intimate walk with Christ in life, because Jesus does want that with us. Let's just be real. The woman at the well is that story, right? He is very highly aware of her sins. And she is the first that hears him say, I'm the Savior of the world. And then she becomes this great missionary and disciple and apostle, or disciple of Christ alongside the apostles in doing missionary work, because she comes from all of this adultery and sin, and then acknowledges he is the Savior.
Yeah.
And then witnesses of him to her community. Now, how many people are saying, you know what, I'm too messed up. I've fallen down too many times. Peter walking on water, he walked with Christ on the water. Why? Because he was willing to look foolish. So the men and women out there that are like, I've tried therapy, it hasn't worked. Well, the one with the issue of blood kept trying.
Yep.
Until Jesus came through her town that day. And so I would just invite you, look foolish. Try one more thing. Fall down, get back up.
Yeah.
The Savior isn't going to say, oh, you're trying to pray, but your prayers aren't that great anymore because you're so anxious and you're so depressed and you're so.
Right.
He's happy that you're trying.
Well, that's why I love the Hand of God painting by Young Sun Kim, because not only is it like the unique perspective of Peter's point of view as he's just below the water surface, but you can clearly tell the Savior's smiling at him.
So
like,
proud of
like,
him.
way to go, dude.
Yeah, way
Look
to
what
go.
you just did.
Yeah.
And you lose that perspective a lot with that story, because I think you're right. We jumped a lot to he sank.
Or the
right?
people that stayed in the boat, and just no shade on them, but they weren't willing to look ridiculous. And I just think for those of us living our faith out loud, and those of us posting about it, doing art around it, writing books about it, whatever it is that you're trying to do to show the world, I'm stepping out of the boat to be with the Savior, we're opening ourselves in the world to some criticism.
Yeah, we will.
And I mean, I just shared with you before we started taping about just a post I did on social media and some criticism I got. And the overwhelming response was gratitude and beautiful DMs from people that needed what I had shared. But
you also took the hits.
But I also took the hits. And I do that, and I'm willing to do that because I hope what I write and post about and speak about points back to Christ, not to me, not following me. And I think what Peter is telling us, like, yeah, if you want an intimate relationship with Christ and you want to walk with him, do some really cool stuff, there's going to be that moment that you feel foolish. You're going to have those moments where you even do fall.
And you're going to need to take the risk to step outside the boat.
Totally. Well, and it's worth it.
I know. Well, I think that's another reason why I really relate to Peter. Is to me, Peter is the most bipolar experiences of the apostles.
Good cusser. A good cusser.
Exactly. He goes from stepping outside, walking on water, to I'm going to cut this guy's ear off. And then being sad and full of spirituality. And then I'm never going to deny it. And then he denies Christ. He has so many of these ups and downs. And I think that's so relevant to what we all of us experience today.
Well, and I think of the prophet Elijah, where you hear that he is really wishing he had never been born. So he's suicidal.
Yeah, of course.
And what does God say to him? He says, I need you to rest for today and take a nap and eat a good lunch. And then tomorrow I need you to get up and do that again.
Yeah.
Rest and eat. And then I need you to do it a third day. And I think that is also, there's so many examples I have found since Meg has died, where I can see where the Lord understands how complex mortality is.
I asked you this question the first time that we met. And again, I'm pulling back the curtain here, guys. And I loved your response that when you gave it to me. So I want to ask you the question again. If you knew what you knew now about with your studies in mental health and your career and your speaking tours, and you could talk to her right now before it happened, what would you say? Well,
I mean, I have a minor in psychology, and I had that before she passed. I think the reality is Meg knows.
Yeah.
Meg's with me. Meg's often with me when I'm speaking. She knows we're telling her story. Her story has saved a lot of people. And when I say save, I say that with an asterisk because only the Savior saves.
Of course.
And I had to learn that pretty immediately, that no one around Meg that loved Meg so deeply could have saved her, not her good bishop. He was the most emotional at her funeral, you know, because he had watched her, like I had, do really well and then sink again. And so what I would just say is God really does honor our agency.
Yeah.
And because of that, I'm not saying there's not beautiful stories where people are like, I read your book and I changed my mind, or I read a post you did, or I heard you speak. I mean, I have those. I have those sacred letters of people that what I hope they felt in those words they heard from me is God in that. But it was still their agency to hear my words or read my book or hear me speak and then make a different decision, right? And so I would just say it's not that I wouldn't or didn't. I mean, I was the big sister that tried to say all the things.
Of course.
Wrote all the letters.
The big sisters always try to mom.
Did all the things. Did all the things. At the end of the day, I know Meg, and I think I shared this, and this may be what you're referring to. There's a study done of those that jump off the Golden Gate Bridge and survive. That's not a big number because most of the people that do that die. But from those that have survived jumping from the Golden Gate Bridge, so had the thought, the world would be better without me, which my life is not better without Meg. Even with all the books and all the speaking and all the podcasts and all the TV, my life's not better without her. The people that survive jumping the Golden Gate Bridge, 98% say they know the minute they jumped, they made a mistake. That's extraordinary.
Wow.
That's extraordinary data. That what my friends that are licensed therapists share with me is that when they have clients that consistently struggle with these thoughts of self-harm and dying, it's really about thinking, tomorrow I'll wake up wherever that is, and I won't be in this kind of pain. And what my friends that are therapists will often say to those clients, you wake up tomorrow after you've died, I can't make an appointment with you.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much Meg is still learning, but there's so much you and I get to learn faster because of these physical bodies.
Yeah.
And so for her eternal progression, she's going to have to learn things in a different way. I don't know what that way is. I don't understand all of that. In our faith practices and beliefs, we believe in eternal progression. Not all faiths believe that.
Yeah.
So I believe she continues to learn, and she learns by watching me. She cheers me on. She wants our family to heal and to find joy again. But I'm going to be honest, there's more things I grieve. You know, new things happen that she's not been here for. You know, both my kids went on missions and came home from missions, and she wasn't here. Now, do I believe she's here? She's here, yeah. But on an average Wednesday is when I wish I could just call her.
Yeah.
You know, as our parents are aging, which they are, 12 years later, you know, I'm here doing that without her, right? So I would just say there's nothing in my life that's better without Meg. But I know because of my faith that I'll be with her again. I know she continues to progress. And I also know that she knows that that was a decision she made. I know a lot of her lived experiences that added to the trauma and depression and struggles that she had in life. Yeah. Where she just thought, in literal terms, a big lie, which is that we'd be better without her. And I don't want to minimize that there are people in our audience listening to this that are feeling that too. Yeah. And I would just say, stay in your body.
Yeah. The world is not better off without you.
Not.
At all.
The day we placed Meg's headstone was the day Robin Williams was found. And I remember thinking collectively, the whole world is grieving suicide right now. Because here's the happiest, most creative. What would we have still gotten from Robin Williams?
Right. Yeah.
What would we have gotten? Right? And so I know God understands why someone makes that choice. It's not my place to judge. I also think that communities like parents, and when I speak in schools and I can't talk about God, we all walk around with risk factors. So I speak in corporate settings. I can't go deep into my faith, right?
Of course.
We all walk around with risk factors. So when people ask me, why did Meg die of suicide? I could list you her risk factors, but you may have the same ones. And so it's about getting those big toolboxes, including therapy. Yeah. It's about including our faith practices, because I think it's really good for our mental health. You know, Arthur Brooks is one of the great happiness experts at Harvard, and he is a very highly religious Catholic, practicing Catholic. And he talks about how prayer is good for your brain because it takes you out of that animal fight or flight, and it takes you up into your frontal cortex where you have to find words to talk to God. Yeah. That's just good brain science,
you
right?
Just have to, it forces you to process.
Right. And so it used to be like you're either a person of science or you're a person of faith. Wow. You're either a person of faith that doesn't have mental health, or you're a person that has mental health stuff and you don't have faith. It's not, we're all living paradoxes. We're all living a messy version of ands. Yes, I'm a person of faith, and I struggle physically sometimes when I wake up every day. Yeah. And I struggle mentally at times, the last 2 years for sure, which is why I wrote Sourdough and the Savior, is I have felt really lost. I have felt very much like I don't know my identity or my contribution in the world. Publishing has changed. Book sales has changed. Podcasting has changed. Everything that I've worked 10 years on has changed.
Art is changing. Art
has changed because of AI, right? Like there's a lot that has changed in the world that I think that at this age, as I've looked forward, I know there's a lot of life still to live, right? Yeah. But I am in a little wandering time right now. And I think wildernesses are sacred times. Of course. And I knew the minute my show ended and my child left and I was recovering from this surgery and injuries that I could fill up the noise the lack of busy with more noise. I could hurry and just get extra busy so I didn't have to feel the feelings of loss. I didn't have to feel the uncomfortable identity shifts I was going through. I could ignore the insecurities I was experiencing and questions I had that are still there if I just stayed busy.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was the cure for all my down episodes, for all my manic episodes. Just find something to do, find something to do, find something to do, find something to do. Really, it was a fear.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm afraid of sitting and doing nothing because I feel like I'm going to fall apart.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm a fan of get up, make your bed. Get up and go for a walk. I'm a fan for find someone to serve, right?
Yeah.
But there was also something about all of these dramatic losses at the same time. I'm going to do a shout out to my friend Brad Wilcox. And he said, you're gonna question, I don't know how long this wilderness is going to go, but you're going to think you've done something wrong. It's not true.
Yeah.
The Lord is preparing you for something. And so I took that to heart. I still get uncomfortable at times because I want the next thing to be clear. I want to be clear about what my purpose is and all the things that I'm struggling with personally right now. And yet I think if you look at the pattern in the scriptures, God often takes his people out into the wilderness before he takes them into the promised land. There's something sacred about the wandering.
Of course, yeah.
And you can't put a bow on it. And you can't. And I think that's where art is so beautiful and music is so beautiful because it puts something on the thing that you can't describe.
Yep. Like as it teaches without words.
Yeah.
It teaches through emotions.
And it's a sacred time. It's the becoming. And you're not there yet. You haven't arrived there yet. You haven't gotten off the boat and done the gratitude prayer of we arrived and we're in the middle of the journey. And I don't know how it's all going to end up. I know that in the middle of it, like all of us, not just me, not because I learned sourdough, not because I wrote another book, not because I, walked my dog more and went back to therapy. But I know in those dark, wandering times, the Savior is there. Yeah. And oftentimes I can hear him louder in those times than when it looks like everything's working. So I'm really grateful for people like you and others that are willing to say, I don't just wake up every day and jump out of bed and it's easy. It's hard. And in that process, what muscles have you grown?
Right.
Not just the ones at the gym, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually, right? Those are so internal. And I think that's why I love artists because they take internal things and try to put it on a canvas.
Yeah.
I try to take internal things and put them on a page or speak at an event or post on social media. And yet it's this human experience is pretty complex.
Yeah, it is.
And God is never far away, and he has not left me. Sometimes I hear him when a friend calls. Yeah. Sometimes I hear him when I listen to good music. Sometimes I hear him when I read the scriptures. Sometimes I hear him when I walk my dog, right? Sometimes I hear him when I take sourdough to a neighbor. It's true.
Exactly. Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming by. And if you haven't gotten this yet, go pick it up because it's going to change. It's going to revolutionize how you think about everyday life and the relationship between mental health and faith. So please go pick this up.